So welcome to Numbers Nolan, the podcast where we talk to top performers about the numbers that drive them personally and professionally. I'm here with a dear friend, former boss, former person that did more activities in HubSpot than me. With his eyes closed, he is the CEO of RevPartners, Brendan Tolleson. How are you, Brendan?
Who's Jane?
Is that not your middle name? Is it Evelyn or Jane?
Man, you did some bad research. The things you've been telling me you've been finding about me are just your AI. You gotta be careful with AI, man. It's not always accurate. Story is the middle name.
Precursor to a bad interview. Let me make a note here. Not Evelyn. Okay. I did do some research, and I have three numbers that I think explain you pretty well. Get ready for a wild ride of me connecting some dots here, but I can go first to kind of show you the way this will go. Are you ready?
I'm ready to see what numbers you have for me.
Get into our first number now. Brendan, my first number that I think describes you pretty well is 100 million. Any idea why?
It's one of my numbers, Rob. That is the objective or the goal that RP has over the next 10-year time frame, that we want to be a $100 million business.
I paid attention in onboarding. Yeah, I did. So some of the research was good. Maybe not your middle name. $100 million ARR services company in 10 years. I don't know if that's the next 10 or 10 total, but you're about halfway in. I think you guys are at about 15 now, 20.
I wish we were at 15 or 20, but we are slightly behind, candidly, on that initiative, but not too far, which is the good news. Things have picked up quite a bit, so the hope is that we make up ground to be on track by the end of this year. So that's the long-winded answer of saying we're not 15, we are a little bit behind, but that is definitely the objective we have, is to be a $100 million business. Yes.
$100 million is a lot. You guys are definitely hiring as if you were trying to achieve that goal. Yeah. How have you approached growth, retention of talent, and really the entire decision-making process as the person that sits in that seat over the last 5 years?
Well, this kind of goes into this is my second number, which answers some of your question, is we try to break that down into consumable bites. And so what we've communicated to the team is that in 3 years, we want to be a $20 million business. And so that we can kind of map out how do we get there. And so that's looking at a 25 to 30% growth rate year over year from where we are today over the next 3 years. And then things just start to compound even further. But so that's what we kind of thought through. And then for us, when you asked about like the people growth, for us, it's about, for every million in revenue, it's about 7 people. At 20 million, let's call it 140 people. And but it may be, us probably 120, 140 is the number for our people. That represents opportunity, mobility, whether they want to be an individual contributor or they want to be a manager. And so that's why revenue, to answer your question of like, why do I care about revenue? Yes, I like to build things, but I also want to create opportunity for our people, and growth facilitates that.
My favorite growth saying of yours is growth begets complexity, right? You say that a lot. My dad used to say, you can want in one hand and shit in the other one and see which one fills up faster. So I do have a question from that. How do you navigate increasing complexity within a business in terms of what you want versus in terms of what the other leaders and department heads want versus what the business actually needs?
Everyone's voice matters, but everyone doesn't have a vote. So I'd say that, like, we do want to hear the perspective and opinion of our people. And so for me, there is a responsibility where I sit to make decisions that are in the best interest of the business. And soliciting feedback from the team helps me understand, hey, what are the gaps that I don't see? But ultimately, it's a call I have to make. And for the team, it's like, hey, you may disagree, but I need you to commit to the decision. It's one of our core principles is disagree and commit. And that we can say it, but once the decision is made, we go after that, that objective. And so that example you just mentioned of, hey, $100 million business, we may disagree that that's the right number, but we're going to commit to that number and make sure that we attack that. And so for us, for getting to where we are today, to that type of number, I think through what service lines do we need to create? How do we get there? I mean, do we grow organically? Do we grow inorganically? Which inorganic gets into mergers and acquisitions. Those are the type of things to think through. And for us, like, for example, we've been very focused on HubSpot and doing RevOps. And then we said we need to actually move into SouthBound and really focus on Clay as another product. Thankfully, that decision has worked out really well. But there's also, for every good decision, there are also bad decisions. We've tried to do other service lines that have not worked. That's okay. Like we want to make small bets and small investments in areas, and then say, okay, what's working, and let's double down on that side. So I don't know if that answers your question directly, but if me as a CEO has a different desire or outcome than what's best for the business, then I would say that there's a big problem there. And so to me, those things are actually pretty much aligned, that I have a responsibility to the shareholders of the business. And so I need to make sure I'm making those decisions for the business. And then for our people, yeah, it's a voice, not a vote, that you solicit their feedback on decision making to make sure we know the gaps, the problems, or the opportunities, and then we attack.
Second number for you, Brendan. Hopefully you don't have the same second number. I'd be shocked and kind of concerned that you cheated on my paper. 404. You know what this has to do with? It's actually a twofer.
Well, I'm assuming we are referencing my hometown, and I have a lot of love for the city of Atlanta, and I was born and raised here. Now I have a family here, with my own family, I should say, and so SouthBound is probably where you're going for the twofer, if I had to guess.
You're not as smart as you look, buddy. Yeah, that's part of it. It's the ATL area code. There's a couple other ones, 770, 678. There's some. So there's the Atlanta portion of that, but it's also kind of an internet meme now, but HTTP 404 not found is the other 404. It literally means this web page that you're trying to search doesn't exist. So the first part you did nail. It's Atlanta. You do live there, have a family there. You've been very intentional on making SouthBound like the inbound of the Southeast and leaning into the potential that Atlanta has to be like a tech growth hub. Whereas it's really, it hasn't been. It should be. It's not. You see people going to San Francisco and businesses and VCs leaning into like Silicon Valley and Boston and all of that. And you've been pretty dogged and determined about bringing the same types of businesses, experiences, SouthBound as that example, to Atlanta. Why is that so important to you?
Community is really important to me, candidly. So I think when I think about events, for me, it's more so about how do we create connections and community within the city? How do we make cities smaller? How do we create opportunities for our people? There are lots of people in Atlanta that are passionate about tech. I mean, Atlanta's a big city. We don't need to act like it's a small town. But I think to your point, it's probably viewed more as a tier 2 city versus like a New York, Boston, or San Francisco. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for talent and for ideas and for, cities thrive and companies thrive. And so that, to me, that's something that I really care about. It's kind of ironic because we have people in Atlanta. So I don't know how passionate I really am at this point, but I do think that what we did, to your point, want to put a stake in the ground for the Southeast, for HubSpot when we first built it, and just felt like this could be something that we could do every year to bring this community together. I love my city, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and I want to see other peers in this part of the country really be part of it. So to answer your question, is probably the more selfish of from a CEO perspective that I wanted to do. And it's been fun to build over the last 3 years. So earlier I talked about purpose. And so for us, there's an element of purpose that I thought would be tangible, in the sense that they get to see their go-to-market, the people they serve, in person, so face-to-face. So I think that's valuable. I think it's valuable for them to learn from some of the top operators in our space, because they need to know what's on the mind of the buyer and how did they serve that person well. I think there's an element of connection and community that's fostered by being together. So we're a fully remote company, and I don't see that changing. And so creating moments like that matter. So those are a few of the reasons. And I do think there's some power in them. Just when I talk about purpose, they're just seeing that they're part of something bigger than themselves, and that what we're building, it makes it very real in ways that I can talk about it, but if they see it and experience it, it changes things. And that thankfully happened. And I guess the last thing, when we do something together, there's just a lot of power in that too. And so when we serve together, we try to create, this idea of hospitality. How do we treat our attendees as guests? That guest mindset. It's like we are in a services business. And so even just that is a very practical way for us to be reminded of what we do on a day in, day out basis.
The second part of that, to quickly catch back up, 404 page not found. When RP started with the $100 million mission, right? I was around, I was there for 3.5, almost 4 years. That was insane. Like the concept of a RevOps company. First of all, RevOps was brand new, which is wild. RevOps is what is to then as GTME is now. HubSpot had just like ended this non-compete and was moving more into the CRM like platform side of things from marketing. And so the 404 not found kind of idea was inspired by, you didn't have an example necessarily to follow, and people called you like insane. I think Yamini mentioned that there was some quote that's like, good luck, right? Like, you're my most ambitious partner in the services area. What's the difference in being held to a standard / like following one versus setting one? Because that's what you did with RP.
I had models of like how I thought we could build it. So this is not like all my concepts. So that's one. I think there is this idea of like, hey, aim for perfection, settle for excellence, is another one. But I think it's really for me, it's like, I think what we found is people want to be part of something that's meaningful, that has purpose, and that they enjoy. And if you can create an environment of safety and belonging and clarity on where we're going as a business, and you empower them to actually execute against that, like, pretty powerful things happen. Our sustainable competitive advantage is our people, and the culture that we've created. And I think that candidly is the biggest component of our success. I don't think it's really it's not just white noise for us or like words that we talk about it. I think you'll find that it's deeply rooted into the business. But you could speak to it. Like I said, you've been a part of it. So I'd love to hear your reaction to that question of how did you experience RP to say, hey, that's garbage, or that's pretty consistent?
For me, you drove a lot of that with reflection, right? If you don't have something, setting the standard requires a lot of reflection and looking back to determine what was good and what needed improvement, right? So a lot of the operating principles were built around that. Feedback is a gift, fail forward, like all of those things, along with literally like the BT weekly reflections, the Slack message that you send to the org on Fridays, allowed for a standard to reveal itself.
If you aren't doing what you expect from others, then how the heck are you going to get them to do it? So I do think there's something there that's a really long-winded way of saying that. But we talk a lot about, as you know, this idea of excellence and care. It's the pursuit of the end of how do we strive for excellence and how we strive for care. Go for that top right box. It's like if we go too far to excellence, then we get into toxicity. Too far to care, then we get into mediocrity. And so for us, like, how do we stay in that top right? And we are not there all the time, of course, because we're not perfect. But that is like that to your point about like the standard. That's the standard that we strive for, is excellence and care.
My third number for you is 624. 624.
624. I have no idea what that means. Go for it.
I'm a numbers guy. It's from Matthew. It's Matthew 6:24, actually. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. This is rooted in all kinds of stuff. You're a man of faith, of family. This question is rooted in choice, right? And it's not necessarily biblical, but like right now you could serve the business. I mean, every example almost that you've given has like a kind of a binary to it, excellence or care. Right now it's like AI or kind of hedging against all of the crap. How do you, in 2024, actually, with an interview with James Bird from Growthwell, he asked you about being able to navigate the path of being like a business owner, leader, and a husband. And you said candidly, you had no idea. And you failed at that a lot, but it was worth striving for. So the question out of that, the talking point becomes like, how do you navigate a sea of choices, both personally and professionally all the time, to like figure out what to prioritize?
Well, I appreciate that. That's a really challenging verse when you really, that's ultimately talking about like, do you pursue God and money? And so I think that's that one's not fun to engage with.
That was, yeah. I wouldn't want to get that deep.
I wasn't saying you're wrong, but it does. It's like a state of the heart. It's really a hard issue. When we started RP, like my wife and I weren't aligned on the business. And I think when people ask me, like, should I start a business? I'm like, well, hey, first thing you should probably figure out is make sure you and your wife are on the same page, because it'll create a lot of problems if you aren't. So thankfully we're in a good spot now, but that was a hard time. So yeah, I think priorities for me is, at least when you ask about like family and business, or like for me, like the family and business side, it's more about like thinking long term of like, what do I want? What kind of relationship do I want with my wife? What kind of relationship do I want with my kids? Like like the idea of like success versus significance, and like what are the things that I truly value that will endure? Like what's unique to me? Like what's unique to me is that I'm a dad and a husband. There are plenty of people that can run RP or whatever job I have. Like I'm replaceable in my job. I'm not replaceable at home. And so figuring out what's the right, doesn't mean I don't have a responsibility at work, but I do think I need to be mindful of that. And so I was actually listening to Ben Sass, who's a former senator from Nebraska who's dying, like he has stage 4 cancer. And he talked about one of the practical things he was talking about was like how much should I be traveling on the road on a given month? Because he's like, hey, looking back now, what are the things that I would do differently? And he talked about, hey, I'd honor the Sabbath, like truly honor it, and like get rid of technology and be present with and I would, from a dinner perspective, I'd have dinner at home. And from a travel perspective, I would do way less travel than I do today. So like those are some practical things for me that like I try not to travel because I think I want to be home, especially in this season where I have a 12, 10, and 7-year-old. So like that's like, those are some examples on the family versus the business side. That's really long-winded. I'm sorry, but there's a lot I could talk about on this question that I care about.
I think some people that might not know you or might not have understand the context of the question would think it's not a very good answer, because what you're compared against is people that have a silver bullet or claim to, or they have some cure-all or panacea for things. And what I appreciate about you as like a point of closing, or if you have a third number that you're ready to give quickly, is the fact that you're something that people might perceive as not answering a question directly. I've come to learn about you is requiring more context. Your advice to me versus a 21-year-old would be different versus somebody that's older or on their deathbed. So I just want to say I appreciate that about you, and I think AI could learn a lot about you, about itself and what it should do if it listened to this interview. Context is very important.
I want to make sure I'm answering the question that's being asked. And to your point, sometimes I have to think through it out. And sometimes, unfortunately, for the recipient, that comes with me talking out loud. But yeah, enjoy the conversation. The last number I had was number 1, and that's around HubSpot and Clay being the top partner. And that's how we ultimately get to the 20 and get to the 100. So those are my 3 numbers, 100, 20, and 1.
Do you have a number yet for the amount of money you're going to make from those basketball cards you found?
You know, Rob, I got.
Is that 100 million or 20 million?
I think it might be $2, but it's hard to know. It's one of those things where, as you know, like the ranges for what your card can be worth, I'm realizing it's pretty astronomical. And the bluff is I need to get them graded to know if I actually have something of value, or if I should just throw all these in a dumpster and light it on fire.
Thank you for this. I know you have to run. I will. People can find you. I'll do this for you on LinkedIn. Send him DMs, please. He loves to DM people all the time on LinkedIn. Thank you for doing this interview, man. I'm glad we got to know some of the stories behind the numbers that motivate you. See you.
All right, sir. Thanks for having me.